Hey there Final Fantasy TCG players, Joesephyr here, bringing you some news that I'm sure everyone has already heard. Dadaluma has been banned for constructed play as of the release of Opus 9. Now I thought that this would be a really good opportunity to discuss whether we think that Dadaluma being banned was fair and the mentality that goes behind banning cards in general, and therefore kind of whether other cards might get banned in the future, whether it was something to do with Opus 9 that's caused the ban, or basically whether we think it's a healthy point for the game or not. So if you're interested in finding out more about Dadaluma's ban, then stay tuned and keep on watching. As always, don't forget to check out the links in the description box below for all of my social media, including my Discord channel where we all discuss a lot of deck ideas, Final Fantasy TCG, Dissidia Opera Omnia, which has become quite a prominent part of my YouTube channel recently, as well as the TCG, and all sorts of other links as well. So you can definitely come find me and drop me a message. I'm actually also going to be at the UK Games Expo this weekend demonstrating Final Fantasy TCG for everybody, so if you guys happen to be going to that event, and by all means stop by and say hello. I'll have a couple of decks with me so that I can play with you guys, and I'd be happy to show you, or any of your friends or anything, how to play the game if you've never played it before. So Dadaluma himself was quite a hot point of contention when it came to Final Fantasy TCG as a competitive game. And that's because it enabled combos that were very, very easy and very, very consistent for you to be able to just remove pieces off the board very quickly and easily by way of numerous different sort of outlets, primarily in Earth-Wind decks that are already very strong using the FF11 engine, that you can defend very easily, and you have access to Cactuar, who can ping a guy for 1,000, and therefore you ping the Dadaluma and it deals 4,000 to something else, and then if you've got multiple Cactuars, then bigger things can be removed. Terra was another one that people played for a while in Earth Ice, where you could just ping Dadaluma after he was dulled, and just it becomes one ice, deal a guy 4k, and that's extremely powerful. But there were counters to Dadaluma in that, there's so much removal that's in the game, but the trouble, there's so much removal in the game, which means that he is removable. There's nothing wrong with trying to remove him. But the problem comes in the fact that if he's targeted, you take 4k. If he's damaged, one of your guys takes 4k. So it ends up getting to a point where if you kill him, or if you do anything to try and stop him, then if they have a Cactuar or a Terra or anything that can, or Semi-Lafina, for example, like anything that can ping him for 1,000, the chances are that the player trying to remove Dadaluma is going to lose more than the Dadaluma player that is being killed. It's kind of a backwards mentality, and I can see why they chose to make a ban in this regard. One thing that I find very interesting is that the mentality that goes behind bans, and like when a games company has to ban a card, how it makes the creators feel. Kageyama posted on his Twitter that he's very sorry that he's had to ban something, and he's really apologetic. I've seen his Facebook post, all of it's extremely apologetic for the fact that he's had to ban something. And I understand this. I've worked for games companies in the past, and obviously banning cards happens. It's one of the things that comes with the territory, certainly in a game that doesn't feature rotation. Many games that do feature rotation still have bans in them if they start to come, or if something starts to steamroll too far ahead of other things. And I think in this case, it's certainly in Japanese culture, or with just this company in general, I think that it's taken this long for bans to start to happen because people don't want to feel like they've misdesigned something. They don't want to feel like something they've put out into the world as a creative hasn't gone down the way they thought it would, because that is a sad thing for anyone who's like trying to make something that's fun for everybody. The same thing happened when Thaumaturge and Gesper were banned as well, because they were providing negative player experiences for people who were playing the game, and that's not good for the people who make it. So Dadaluma going just means that, it was obviously becoming very negative for a lot of people. There were a lot of Dadalumas and Cactuars being played in a lot of high-level tournaments. I mean, I actually lost to it at Water Cup, and it was the thing that sort of knocked me out of the ability to go to Euros. And Dadaluma is just a very easy play, because once you've played a Dadaluma, you don't tend to play a Dadaluma in Earthwind until you already have at least one or two Cactuars, because there's no reason to. But once you've got that set up, it's very, very difficult to break, if not practically impossible. And because Earth is so good at recurring things, even if your Dadaluma does go and you've spent all the resources in killing it, they can just pull it back and play it again. So it ends up becoming this horrendous wall that you have to break, and just ends up being very, very difficult for any other deck to beat, and it actually writes off a lot of other decks completely. Like Fire, most of its removal is damage based. Lightning, most of its removal is damage based. So in fact a lot of elements do, like Ice even, like Glacial Avalanche is damage, Shiva is damage. There's a lot of damage based removal that just doesn't do nearly enough if there's a Dadaluma on the side of the board. Having had a look at some of the sort of posts that have come out on Facebook or on TCG fans or the European page or the American page, all the various different groups, some people think that the wrong card got banned when it came to, banning cards in general. A lot of people are pointing fingers at Y'shtola, a lot of people are pointing fingers at 3 CPs of Dan, a lot of people have been pointing fingers at Star Sibyl. They all seem to have something in common, and that it's all that the Earth-Wind deck is just that little bit too prominent and people are getting a little bit sick of it. But, I think that banning Dadaluma is a step in the right direction because it's the end game play. It's nice that the deck has so much consistency when it comes to your Star Sibyl, Semi-Lafina, Canlanaut, etc. It's an FF11 engine. So therefore it's kind of thematic, which is what I think the game is trying to sort of head towards in that direction. Like you notice that a lot of decks that have been doing well recently, like you've had Fire and Ice FF6, you've had Fire and Earth FF7, you've had Water and Fire FF9. It's nice that then you've got the FFL cards. It's nice that it seems like thematic, tribal-esque decks seem to be coming forward. And Earth-Wind is actually quite heavy on FF11 in general, so maybe they didn't want to detract too much from that by getting rid of something like Star Sibyl. Y'shtola is a weird one. Now, personally, I think Y'shtola could go, purely because there are cards named Y'shtola like the backup that came in the Heroes vs Villains deck that are actually quite good, but they'll never see you play because the Opus 5 Y'shtola is just that good. And the only other thing that worries me when it comes to Y'shtola is that Dadaluma was only a hero. He wasn't particularly difficult to get hold of. Y'shtola is a legend, and there's no sign of her being reprinted. We've had the new deck coming out that's got Diablos and Phoenix being reprinted, and Cecil, which are some really prominent parts of at least the 3-colour versions of that deck. And, Diablos goes in every Wind deck, and Cecil goes in practically every Earth deck, but there's no sign of Y'shtola being reprinted. So that's the only thing that worries me about that, is that the more sets start to come out, the harder that Opus 5 is going to be able to get hold of, and therefore these Y'shtolas are just going to be going up and up and up and up and up in price, and they're just going to be inaccessible to everybody, which is not something we want for a card that's over a year old. What's interesting with Dadaluma's ban as well is that normally in other games, I played Yu-Gi-Oh! Once upon a time, a long time ago. When they go for the jugular for a deck in Yu-Gi-Oh! With a ban list, they tend to go for the consistency plays rather than the end game plays. So Star Sibyl was very much a character that everyone was looking at. But instead of Star Sibyl going, because I think killing the consistency engine of any deck literally just kills the deck, and that is not what you want from a ban list. What you want is to balance it. You don't want to just kill it outright. That's just not too far in the other direction. You don't want to end up killing something off completely. I think the Semi-Lafina going, however, wouldn't have been the worst shout, because Star Sibyl is still a decent card, even at 5 CP. The fact that you have that perfect curve in Earthwind of going turn 1 Semi-Lafina, turn 2 Star Sibyl, or turn 1 2 CP Wind backup, turn 2 Star Sibyl, search for Semi-Lafina, and you just get this perfect curve that is very difficult to argue with or to keep up with in literally any other deck. So you end up then cracking the Star Sibyl to play Canlanaut, which searches for Chaos, and then it's so easy. And I think that's the issue that deck had, is how easy it was. I don't think that Dadaluma being banned is going to write off Earthwind pretty much at all. But this is actually a good thing, and I think that they actually did make the right call in banning Dadaluma, because I originally would have said get rid of Semi-Lafina, because then you still have the use of Star Sibyl in other decks, but anyways. Whereas Dadaluma just makes it so that they don't have their easy win button where they just go, I have 3 Cactuars and a Dadaluma, you can't win now. Or I have 2 Cactuars, a Dadaluma and a Miner out. There's nothing you can do. I could play an Nymphilia, pick up the Miner and the Dadaluma. There's 2 more Dadalumas being played. Unless you play an absolute buttload of monster hate, you then don't get rid of the Dadaluma. And even if you do, the deck still has 40 odd other cards in it that are still there to try and win. So I think that actually Dadaluma was the right shout to make. There's also arguments that Dadaluma wasn't enough in terms of banning it. Dadaluma was getting to a point where he wasn't the only reason that Earthwind was doing so well, and I actually agree with that as well. It's very easy to agree with both sides of the argument. Like, was Dadaluma enough? Was there too much? Did too much get hit? Wasn't enough hit? You know, like I said, I personally would have hit Semilafina, but you know, I think that Dadaluma is just a really strong card in general. Like, there were other decks that he went in, like Earth Ice had FF6 that could search for him and combo with Terror and things like that, but the predominant reason for getting rid of him was that one deck. So let me know in the comments below, what do you think of Dadaluma's ban? Do you think that they were right to ban him? Do you think that there were other cards they should have banned first? Do you think that only one ban was enough? Or do you think that banning cards in this game starts to set a slippery slope where we start ending up losing cards hand over fist? Now, before I end the video, I am going to quickly read off the actual reason that Square Enix gave for banning Dadaluma, as well as making note of the fact that it's not banned until July 19th, which is the release of Opus 9. So maybe there could have been a reason in Opus 9 itself. I said this when the first spoilers for FF9 came, Opus 9, FF9. When Opus 9 came out, and you know, maybe there's something in that set that would have broken Dadaluma even further. So there is that to bear in mind as well. But you know, will this make it so that tournaments up until that point we're just going to be full of Earthwind, where everyone's going to play Dadaluma and get their final fill of it? Or do we think that maybe they'll just sort of let it go so that they can start preparing for the next archetype? I think banning it in conjunction with Opus 9 is a good idea, because that's the sort of time where we would have been having to change everything up for the meta anyway, so having an extra little sort of slight change on top of it isn't that big a deal. Anyways, I am going to turn around and read this off my computer screen so that I don't get this wrong, so do excuse me. The reason for banning Dadaluma was, since Opus 4, this card has long been a reigning presence in the landscape of this game, a card that players have always needed to be conscious of during everything from deck construction to actual matches, and it has acted as an obstruction to changes in the tournament landscape. As it stands now, the card's strength is not so great as to be insurmountable, however. In order to prevent the tournament landscape from becoming too stagnant, we have determined that it will be a banned card. We apologise for the inconvenience and thank you in advance for your understanding. Do you agree with that statement? Do you think that the game would have gotten too stagnant with Dadaluma still in the format? Do you think that more answers would have come about that would have hurt him, or that he was insurmountable after all? I'm going to leave you guys with those thoughts, but let me know in the comments below what you think of Dadaluma's ban in general, and let me know in the comments below what you think what the tournament landscape is going to look like between now and the release of Opus 9, where we're going to see a buttload more cards. I'm obviously going to be bringing you more coverage to do with it, as well as some new spoilers to have a look at for you as well. So thank you very much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope to see you guys soon. Take care.